What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Believe in the Miami Heat, brought to you by the BLEAV Network. As always, I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. Yeah, that's right. We're going to talk some Miami Heat basketball today. It's been about over a month since I've had a basketball video. The last one was on Goran Dragic's retirement game in which Chris Bosh played. It was really nice, but since then, the Heat news has kind of slowed down. Of course, there was some small things, which we'll get into. But as a guy who prides myself on quality over quantity, I didn't want to just force out videos when there was nothing to talk about. Plus, I figured I'd take the last month or so of the off season to really focus on, my basketball, my girlfriend, all the other things I kind of put to the side when I was doing daily uploads during the prime of the off season. But also, I figured it's football season. We got the Miami Dolphins. They should have a nice, exciting team. We'll have a lot to talk about. But here we are 3 weeks into the season with Skylar Thompson starting behind center. We're getting our ass kicked, and there's really no hope. But we will get into some football later because the Dolphins do have a big Monday night game coming up. And you do got that boy Cam Ward and the Miami Hurricanes absolutely cooking now. So we got a lot to talk about. I do got my notes here of everything I want to get into, but we probably will be rambling because this is a podcast. So if you're the guy in the comments commenting right now, why does this guy blabber so much? Well, one, because it's a podcast, and two, I will have timestamps down below so you can jump around to whatever topic interests you. Just look in the description. That's for both the YouTube video and the audio podcast side for all my audio-only listeners, which I've really been slacking over there too. But like I said, I need to use this offseason to kind of, give myself a break because I was doing the daily videos for like 50 days straight. And in order to not get burnt out, it's important to take a break and just kind of let there be some news worth talking about. So I figured I'll record tonight. If you're in Florida, I'm actually recording this on Thursday, September 26th, which is the day that Hurricane Helene, or I guess the night in which Hurricane Helene is supposed to make landfall. It was a Category 4. I think it was downgraded to a Category 3. I'm in Fort Myers, so it's supposed to hit way north of us. But it's been extremely bad winds all day. I woke up to no power. It was only for a few minutes, but the power is on right now. It hasn't rained yet, but it's still 7 p.m. I think it's going to get the worst of it probably throughout the course of the night. So we'll see what happens. And of course, for everyone way farther north of me, I think the direct hit's going to be closer towards Tallahassee. I hope y'all are doing okay as well, because the last big storm we got was right here by my home. That was, of course, Hurricane Ian, and it was pretty disastrous. But anyways, we'll talk a little bit about some of the Heat nuggets that we've got over the last couple weeks or so. There's been a lot of different Jimmy Butler rumors. And y'all know how I feel about the dumb offseason reporting. Basically meaning you get a million reports every offseason that says blank team is interested in blank player. And it's always a good player. Like, no crap. A good team wants a good player? I'm shocked. And with Jimmy Butler specifically, in the last week or so, you've had the Nets are interested in Jimmy Butler. You've had the Lakers are interested in Jimmy Butler. You've had the Warriors are interested in Jimmy Butler. You know why? Because Jimmy Butler's a good player. So I've seen a lot of channels basically reporting on all that, like it means something. That's not news, and quite frankly, I find it very boring to talk about because that's just off-season talk to get people, I don't know, to get people interested, to get people thinking something's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. At least not this offseason, right? We're well past that point. The Heat's offseason signing was Alec Burks and Nassir Little as of like a couple days ago, which we'll speak a little bit about him too. But as far as the whole Jimmy thing, I really don't think he's going anywhere. I've had a lot of people just kind of ask my opinion throughout the last couple weeks of what do I think is going to happen. I don't think he's leaving. I do think that there is maybe some annoyance or frustration between him and the front office is probably a better way to put it. I know there was a Tim Hardaway quote the other day. He was on a podcast and he said that he thinks Pat Riley is tired of Jimmy Butler. I wouldn't say he's tired of him in a sense that he's looking to trade him, but I do think Pat Riley was frustrated by Jimmy Butler's lackadaisical play last season and really the last few seasons where we know he kind of takes the regular season off because he's going to perform in the playoffs, which is always something that I've been okay with because as long as we get playoff Jimmy, I don't care what he does in the regular season. But the issue is they've barely made the postseason the last couple of years. And what good is playoff Jimmy if you don't make the playoffs? Plus, Jimmy Butler's on the verge of an extension for a lot of money in which he's going to be 36, 37, and 38 years old. And of course, Pat Riley and the rest of the Heat front office is concerned about paying Jimmy that much money for his performance over the last couple years. Because if you're going to get paid that kind of money, you need to perform in the regular season as well. You can't keep playing 60 games a year. 20 of those, you really seem like you don't care all that much. Now, as far as Jimmy Butler, people were thinking, Pat Riley called him out on the press conference. Jimmy's not going to like that. He's going to get mad. He's going to leave. I think the complete opposite. I think Jimmy Butler likes being called out. I think he respects that of his front office because Jimmy Butler has always said that he wants people to tell him exactly how it is right to his face. You hear all these other scenarios where he was in. We can go back to Chicago. He didn't like the immaturity of those young guys in that front office. In Minnesota, we know how that debacle ended. I've heard Jimmy on JJ Redick's podcast talk about how in Philly, they used to be in these film rooms and the team had some rough stretches there, right? And nobody said anything. You had a coach that was too scared to tell it how it is. You had a team that was too afraid to speak up. And Jimmy Butler has said on occasion that it was really only him and TJ McConnell, of all people, who was doing any talking. And now you compare how Jimmy was in all those organizations and how negatively he spoke of all them and how bad things ended. Compare that with the Miami Heat. And it's polar opposites. On the Heat, you have Eric Spoelstra getting into verbal altercations in the game with Jimmy Butler. You have the GM President Pat Riley publicly calling out Jimmy saying, I don't know if he deserves that money. You have a team that is not afraid to tell Jimmy Butler how it is, and I think that Jimmy respects the hell out of it. And once again, compare what Jimmy said negatively about all those other organizations. Meanwhile, with the Miami Heat, it's always, I love this city. I'm built for this city. I'm a perfect fit for this city. And he says that he wants to spend the rest of his career here. Jimmy, listen, a lot of guys will say that. Kyrie Irving has said he doesn't want to get traded a million times. Paul George has said it. But Jimmy Butler is not one to be a liar. He will tell you how he feels. Listen to the man speak. That's a man who wants to be in Miami. And I think it all work out here. Now, does Jimmy go into the season, just play balls to the walls and dominate? I don't know. I'd hope so. People say, he's on a contract year. He's going to try really hard. Not technically, because he still has a player option for next season. So if Jimmy does play this season and he gets hurt or doesn't play well, he can still opt into that final year. And then next year would actually be that contract year. And then what would he be playing for? Because he would have just been coming off a season in which he wasn't great. And now he's a year older. So this can really go a number of different ways. Either he balls out, the Heat give him a big extension, great, or he's not great, opts into the final year, and maybe next year is the last year of Jimmy Butler's career. The next year after the season. It's really two polar, opposites, two extremes there. And I think the reality will lie somewhere in between. I don't know exactly where. I think we'll get a good inclination pretty soon of what to expect from Jimmy this season, because Media Day is in just 4 days at the time of this recording. The Media Day is on September 30th, and the last 2 Media Days, of course, Jimmy Butler's been a big talk of the town with his hairstyle. A couple years ago, you had the dreads. Last year, you had the emo Jimmy, which I thought was hilarious. I really loved that by Jimmy. I think most Heat fans did. A very small faction of Heat fans said, he should take this serious. Why is he making a joke? The way I look at it, last offseason was so depressing where you thought you were getting Dame for months and months and months. Dame said he wanted to be here, and then he ended up on one of your biggest rivals. And I think the team could have looked at that and maybe been, sort of down as well because they were hoping to get Dame. Bam Adebayo was hoping to get his best friend in Dame, and then when that didn't happen, the mood could have been very bad. But instead, Jimmy shows up to the press conference and like buys into that, but in such a ridiculous way to just make like a mockery of it. To say, y'all think we're sad we didn't get Damian Lillard? I'm going to show you how sad I am. And then dresses up as the goth Fallout Boy emo Jimmy Butler to sort of play into that character when in reality, he's just making a joke of it all. Because Jimmy Butler believes in himself, and I think he believes in his team. And while sure, I'm certain that he wanted Damian Lillard, I don't think he gave up all hope once that didn't happen. And the fact that he was able to kind of lighten the entire mood of Media Day and change the storyline from, the Heat screwed up by not getting Dame to, Jimmy Butler is just a hilarious killer. I think that was something that was very beneficial for the Miami Heat last Media Day. So I'm interested to see what he does this time. because obviously you could say it was another depressing, offseason for Heat fans, definitely for the team, because Jimmy didn't get his extension. We all are wondering how he feels about that. Is he annoyed, or does he understand that he was on some BS last year? And I think really how he shows up to media day will really give us a good understanding of kind of where his mind's at, right? Because there was the odds that came out from NBA Central. I don't know if you could actually bet on this or not, but you could bet on, or supposedly there was lines out for what hairstyle Jimmy Butler would show up with. I'll read them real quick in order of, most likely to highest odds. It was bald, dyed hair, afro mohawk, twisties with a low fade, buzz cut, emo again, braids, man bun, dreadlocks again, pigtails, or the Jimmy Neutron at plus 1400, which I just think would be hilarious. Knowing Jimmy Butler, he probably saw these odds and said he's going to do the Jimmy Butler or the Jimmy Neutron. I would love to see that. But I did see a quote tweet to this on Twitter that I thought was really interesting and true. It said the biggest statement that Jimmy could make is not doing any of these at all, just showing up regularly, right? And I don't want to make it seem like, oh, Jimmy's done this thing for 2 years, so if he doesn't do it, something's wrong. In reality, he could just be, wanting to focus on basketball, do something regular, not want to go through all that, stuff, attention again. I don't know. But knowing Jimmy Butler, I do think he's very intentional with the moves that he makes. And I think if he shows up to media day, like not being silly, without a funky hairstyle, and just shows up normally, I do think that could potentially be him trying to make a statement that he's not super happy with his current situation in this organization. It could be him trying to say, I wanted to get paid. I believed in you guys. You didn't believe in me, and that hurts. And we'll have to be able to conclude more based off his answers to questions, because I'm sure he'll get asked that a lot. If he's being short and snippy with reporters saying, it is what it is, or maybe he's blunt about it and says, I believed in me. I just wish they believed in me back. Who knows what he's going to say? Or he can still be, jovial about it and joking and whatnot. And then we're like, okay, Jimmy Butler's not worried about the money. He's going to go out there and prove himself and then worry about it next offseason. So I do think as far as media day goes, this is one of the most important ones. It sounds weird to say when considering you're bringing back virtually the same team outside of Alec Burks and a couple young guys. But I do think it will be very, very telling. So I will definitely be having a video reacting to all of that after Monday, because that's when the media day is. But outside of that, that's really been the main regurgitated Heat topics that have been going on over the last month. So I didn't really want to come on here with a video again talking about, is Jimmy leaving? Does Pat want him gone? Because that's just such a tiring topic in my opinion. But I figured I would address it here just for anybody that's been wondering. So we'll go back to Nassir Little a little bit, because I do believe that was the Heat's final training. No, it was the second to last training camp spot. I think you can carry 20 or 21. But anyways, they signed Nassir Little. At first, you had a lot of people freaking out like, oh, they're going over the second apron and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, relax. The Heat are not going over the second apron for Nassir Little. It's obviously not a two-way spot because those are filled. But what they did give him is a non-guaranteed deal. It's not technically a training camp deal, but because of his age or something, they can't do that. Something like that. But anyways, it's not guaranteed, so it doesn't affect the salary cap space, and it's not an official roster spot. Right now, the Heat have 14 of the 15 roster spots filled, and signing any player to a minimum would put them over that second apron, which you desperately want to avoid. So for that reason, I don't think they're signing any 15th player, at least not right now. What I think will happen is I think they'll play out the season, and then eventually come January, when Kashad Johnson's two-way days run out, I do think they end up signing Kashad Johnson to a two-way, because I believe in him. Now, maybe it's not him. Maybe it's Isaiah Stevens, who will eventually replace Drew Smith on the two-way. That's what we all expect. But maybe it's Isaiah Stevens. Maybe it's Josh Christopher. I just believe at this point it'll be Kashad Johnson. And come January, when his two-way days run out, the Heat will then be able to sign Kashad Johnson to a standard deal, because his prorated contract for the rest of the season is less than how the difference between their current salary cap situation and the second apron. So I know I kind of talked a lot there, but hopefully that makes sense. And to put it into easier terms, too long didn't read, the Heat can't sign anyone until mid-January without going over the second apron. So Nassir Little will not be on the official roster unless they end up cutting someone that is on the roster, like Thomas Bryant, which they're probably not even allowed to do because they just re-signed him. But anyways, I don't think Nassir Little will be on the roster to start the season. They'll probably keep him on their G League team unless he gets poached from someone else. But he won't be on the official roster. But I am curious to see how he does perform in preseason, which I think is like, about a month away now as well, maybe a little bit less than a month away. At least the red, white, and pink game is coming up in a couple weeks here. Because when you lost a guy like Caleb Martin, you lost a lot of perimeter defense there. Over the last couple years, you've lost more than just that. You lost Gabe Vincent. You lost Victor Oladipo, who people always seem to forget about. Those are part of the reasons that I really thought you had to retain Haywood Highsmith, because you weren't a great perimeter defensive team to begin with. And to lose 3 point of attack guys, you couldn't really afford to lose another one in Haywood Highsmith. That's why I love the signing of DeLon Wright in the middle of last season. And of course, they lost him to Milwaukee. So what you're getting in a guy like Nassir Little is a guy that can play defense. He does have a big body, is a 3 that can kind of play the 2 through 4, which is kind of what the Heat like to do in Spoelstra's switchy defensive schemes. Outside of that, he really doesn't provide much. I actually have, I remember from the year Nassir Little was drafted. Actually, let me try to find this real quick. I have my draft wish list from 2019. And I remember Nassir Little was on my do not draft list. I actually pulled up that notes right here because I had it in my notes app. And in 2019, I had 3 guys on my do not draft: Nassir Little, Jackson Hayes, and Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark has shown some flashes, but none of these 3 guys have really panned out super well in the NBA. I will read you my top 5 picks here. My miracle pick was Kobe White, who has been balling out. Last season had a real welcome, not welcome to the NBA party, but like a big resurgence to his career. But I knew he wasn't going to fall to the Heat. This is the year the Heat took Tyler Hero, of course. But the number 1 guy I wanted at that draft spot, which was 13, 14, was Kevin Porter Jr., who obviously has not panned out. I would say primarily for off the court issues. But anyways, Rui Hachimura, who's been okay. He's been decent. Probably not as good as Tyler Hero. Then Bol, who slipped all the way to the second round, in which the Heat did draft, but then traded him to Denver. I was very mad at the time. Then PJ Washington, who I seem to be right on because he's a very, very good NBA player. And then the 5th guy that I wanted was Sekou Doumbouya, who played 12 games in NBA. He's a bust. My honorable mention was Romeo Langford. So that being said, don't come to me for draft analysis, at least not in 2019, because I was pretty terrible. But I do like Khalil Ware, although I wanted Dalton Connect more. So I'll make that statement right now. I think Dalton Connect will be a better NBA player than Khalil Ware. But we'll see what happens. We can revisit this video in 5 years and see how likely stupid I am. But anyways, Nassir Little really doesn't do too much else besides play defense. I guess I'll pull up his stats here because I am curious actually how good his shooting has been. He still is relatively young. I guess he was the same draft as Hero, so that only makes him 24. Obviously, there's still a lot of room for improvement there. But he's a career 33% three-point shooter on 2.2 attempts. Obviously, that's not all that great. Did average almost 10 points per game 1 year in Portland, but only had about 5 points per game since then. So the point is, he's not really a guy that you're looking at to be a bucket getter, but if he can play defense in the system and develop a shot sort of like the Heat did with Justice Winslow, for example, with Caleb Martin to an extent. I think Caleb was probably the best shooter coming into the league compared to those other guys. But, they worked on the hitch in Caleb's shot. They did get him a better shooter. So if they can do the same for Nassir Little, I do think he can be a bit of a nice developmental project. I just don't think he'll make the initial roster right away. But anyways, another bit of Heat news. We had a jersey leak for the City Edition jerseys. It's basically the same Heat culture jerseys, except they look like red pajamas. I think they're terrible, but maybe we'll speak more about that in a future video when the Heats officially announce them. Now, I will say, though, contrary to popular opinion, I actually like the Heat culture jerseys. I know most people hate them. Of course, compared to the Vice, they're not as good as that. But I thought they were nice. I thought the all black with the red and white lettering, I thought was pretty nice. I like the court, but most people really disagree with me on that. But one upgrade that will be very nice is the new lighting system. The new LED screen in the middle of the courts apparently was a $50 million renovation, one that I think was much needed. I thought it was a hilarious tweet I saw. They said Jimmy Butler looking up at the scoreboard, knowing that's where his extension money went. And, it was a picture of him being sad. Because that's true. $50 million, that's about what Jimmy's extension would be. But if y'all have never been to a Heat game, the LED system, I think, is very outdated. It's nice, don't get me wrong. I love the beautiful art installation centerpiece in the middle, but it's just very, very small, particularly to what I see in other arenas. Now, I've only been to one road game, actually. It was when I went to Cleveland last year. And as much of a dump as the city of Cleveland is, their arena is nice, particularly their scoreboard. And I hate to say it, but their scoreboard was way nicer than the Miami Heat. So that if Cleveland has a nicer scoreboard than you got to outdo yourself, Miami. And that's why I was glad to hear that they're getting a $50 million renovation. I do believe it'll be ready for the start of this upcoming season. And if you haven't seen the pictures yet, just go look it up on Google or Twitter. But it's nice. It's got like a giant fireball in the middle with huge screens wrapped around the outside. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And I'm very excited to go to a game next season so I can see that. But that's it, really. That's really the only Heat news that I haven't discussed in the last month, right? And I'm using the term news loosely. So that's why I really haven't been on here forcing out any content. But fortunately, we got some football to watch, kind of, sort of, maybe. Listen, going into this Dolphins season, I was excited. But if you ask me if I think the team was better this year than they were last year, I would have said no. So I always kind of took a step back and been like, well, why am I excited? They didn't win a playoff game last year. Why would they win one this year when they're worse, right? And sure enough, I was right to be hesitant in my excitement. I was right to be hesitant to drink the Kool-Aid like I do every year because you have a nice win week 1 versus Jacksonville. The offense doesn't look great. It looks like an extension of what it was last season. And then you play the Buffalo Bills, and I say week 2, you got a statement game that will tell you exactly what the rest of the season will look like. And what do you get? You get a complete ass kicking, in which unfortunately Tua gets, devastatedly concussed in the end. Wasn't playing great that game to begin with. Unfortunately, he got injured on top of that. And then you go week 3, you're starting Skylar Thompson, who might be a worse quarterback than me, and I can't throw the ball 10 yards. And then you get your ass kicked by Seattle. And now you got a game Monday night versus the Tennessee Titans with Will Levis, who might be worse than Skylar Thompson. Now, obviously, Skylar is hurt. It looks like Snoop Huntley might start. So maybe I'll get a little bit of hope if he comes out there and performs well. But I do believe he has more career interceptions than touchdowns. So once again, I'll be hesitant. But I got a whole video reacting to the Bills game. So if you want to see my full thoughts on the state of the Dolphins, you can watch that. I wasn't able to get a reaction to the Seattle game. I watched it, but I was in Orlando for Halloween Horror Nights, which was a lot of fun. We did the Insidious house. Which was probably the scariest one there, but I really wasn't scared at any of them. I don't know. I just don't really get scared in that environment because you're expecting it. I more so go to the houses for the production value. I thought was very nice. We went with a big group of friends, so I enjoy seeing everyone else get scared, but I didn't really get scared. But the Insidious house was cool. Ghostbusters obviously was awesome. And we did like 6 houses total, so it was a good time. But I was in Orlando last weekend, so no video then. But I was also able to watch the Hurricanes game in which they blew out UCF, covered the spread once again. I was actually in like an hour and a half long line for one of the houses watching the game. So I got to watch basically the entire game. And that boy Cam Ward continues to be awesome. He is currently the leader projected for Heisman winner, which is awesome. When's the last time you had a Hurricane in Heisman talks at all? Always in the beginning of the season, you hear it. Oh, Brad Kayak could win Heisman. Oh, Ja'Cory Harris could win Heisman. Oh, Tate Martell is awesome, and then they all suck. So that's why going into this season, I was also very hesitant to buy into the Hurricanes hype and buying into the Cam Ward hype because we hear this every year as Hurricanes. You have the joke, oh, are the Canes back? We always say it, but they never are. They start the season 10-0, and then they lose to Pitt. Then they bring out the turnover chain. Then they get blown out by Clemson. So rightfully so, I've been very hesitant as a Hurricanes fan. But I like what I'm seeing from Cam Ward, baby. That hit Ward to Restrepo duo has been, chef's kiss. The rest of the receivers are balling out. The offensive line continues to look great. The defense with the Maui brothers are looking awesome. I still think Mario Cristobal is a complete bum, and I think this Hurricanes team has the potential to go far before he blows it. But hey, I'm just enjoying a ride. I haven't been excited about a Hurricanes team since the turnover chain, and it's been quite some years. So it's nice to actually sit down and watch an entertaining football team. And they do play. They got a big game coming up this Friday versus. Why am I forgetting? I'm blanking who they play this Friday. I know they got the Cal game late the next weekend. But anyways, y'all should be watching the Hurricanes because they are the only real football team we have in town at this moment. And I could speak about them for another 15, 20 minutes, but it looks like my camera battery's about to die, and I should be able to get a post-game video to you guys after the game, which is tomorrow. The game's actually tomorrow. So if it's a good game, I'll have my thoughts out. So if y'all are some Hurricanes fans, you could check that out tomorrow night, or I guess tonight, because I'm probably uploading this on Friday. Well, it's still early. I'll see when this is uploaded. But anyways, appreciate y'all for tuning in. If you're on the audio side, make sure to rate 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. We're just a short ways away from Heat stuff really picking up, and we'll get back to the super consistent content once that does happen. So I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.